maintained just in the temples, that the whole world has dealt with this issue already that Noble Drew Ali presented to the world and to you. And we've been irresponsible by telling them it's a prayer alone, and they should be active in political affairs, and that nationality card means more than they think it means. It's political power. However, if you don't activate it, you're denying that political power to yourselves. Islam, Sheikh?
You talked earlier about a national, pushing for a national identity.
Yes.
Could you talk about that a little bit more?
And the reason I say it, because remember this, right now, this is taking place now across this country. Because of the reactivation of the Moorish movement, you got to recognize that while Moors are conscious and while we've been active in our temples and our institutions, etc., there's activities that's been going on around the world and in government that all Moors are not aware of. And that is, governments have been doing, particularly the U.S. corporation, has been doing things to counter the Moorish movement, because we took this movement to the people, and now this movement is back on the front burner. Most of the people that are moving the Moorish movement right now across this country and on the islands don't even have a nationality card. However, the activity is so strong and powerful, it can't be ignored. So they are doing things to counter it. So they're trying to make the license a legal identification now. Moors need to know what's going on. That's what they're trying to do. However, it can only be sustained as illegitimately legitimate as long as Moors are passive. Are we clear? So when someone tries to make the argument to the contrary of what the meaning of your nationality card is, go to Declaration on Human Rights. The international community has already dealt with it. So they can't act like they don't know. And you can't act like you don't know. And it has nothing to do with what you believe or what you don't believe. It has everything to do with your activity in the larger community of the world. And what you do with this or what you don't do with this. Now, you can relegate your children to slavery if you want to, but I suggest that you'll be sorry if you don't act on this, because them Romans are going to do what they got to do irregardless, because they ain't jumping up and out that seat voluntarily. And they're not going to fix it with a program. You're going to fix it with a program, and the prophet brought it to you. You got the most powerful gun in the world. It's called the truth. And if you don't use it, guess what? You're perpetrating a fraud. And not to be active in this movement is criminal. And understand that the nation is out there. The nation is not with us like some little club. We have organizations to maintain and sustain activity, but that is not the nation. The nation is out there. And if they suppress them, they will use funding from them to suppress you. So if you don't go get them, they're going to use their funds to suppress you. So it's in our interest to recognize that we are our brother's keepers, isn't it? So when Drew Ali said, come and link yourselves back with the families of nations, he meant it. And it has meaning behind it. And the Queen read that so you can relate that it's not that other people don't know about this. And we must be aware that they're aware of this. But we must activate and command this in our dealings with other people. We must give them the best that is in us and command the best by our own activity. And we must do these things by starting to reject fraud government and uplifting the Constitution and divine law. Not spookism, knowledge law. It is the sustaining of ignorance that has allowed colorable government to exist and to be maintained and for them to suck the energies of the people. You must begin to reject these things, but you must know the methodologies and the procedures in how to do it. And these are some of the things that Grand Sheikh Nature Bey had been talking about at the Asbury Park Temple for all these past couple years. And some people have opposed it, and some people have begun to understand it, but it is vitally important. It's the enforcement of the protections and the redemption of the birthright. You must understand what that Grand Sheik is doing. And it's exactly what the prophet said must be done. And if we don't carry these things out, we're sorry already, but we're going to be more sorry. Because these Romans have every intention of locking you out and claiming this land. And he can only do it when you deny your responsibility by abandonment. And remember this, from a law perspective, abandonment is vital to their legal processing. The issue relative to us and abandonment, inactivity is listed under law as abandonment. So if you have an inheritance and you won't make the effort to claim it, they're claiming it under abandonment. And after all, you're using his name too? Back to the again with the name, brother? You see what I'm saying? So if Dwali took off one of your sneaks and he's leaving for you to study and get the other one, and we don't do anything about it, and he set the pattern, it's not a mystery. He set a pattern. When Dwali was on the scene, he dealt with diplomats and heads of government. He wasn't going around praying, oh, praise the Lord. No, he dealt with government. His major meetings was with council people, mayors, heads of government, etc. When he went to Cuba, he dealt with governments. When he went to Havana, etc., Panama, he dealt with governments. He wants you to do the same thing. What we did, we got little clubs, restricted ourselves, and prayed 5 times, and put $5 in the tray and swore we did our thing. And people walk around us and say, oh, yeah, they Muslims. We're not mere believers. We are a government. We're a nation. There's a national side to this movement that's supposed to be activated. And you can't activate it if you don't know law. And Constitution is the supreme law of the land. I mean, are you following? And back to what you said before. You know, when you were talking about the name, I know where you're going. You're going to a more pure form, a more pure nation. Because that's what the sovereignty is. See, so if we're not really being ourselves, we have what is known from a legal perspective as, quote unquote, clipped sovereignty, which is the status that we're actually in. Because we're occupied. We're an occupied government. And when you don't understand that this land is an occupied government, you don't approach law correctly. You don't approach conceptually those people you're dealing with from a correct perspective relative to your best interest. You must always remember that the Europeans that are operating in those seats of government are not the government. They are a government of corporations, but they are not the lawful United States Republic government. None of them are. The Republic is silent. The Great Seal has been silent for quite a few generations, and you are the Great Seal. That pyramid that's on that dollar bill. And the dollar bill is suppressed because the moral and ethic debasement of this nation, and it will remain suppressed until you get right. Meanwhile, he's going to do what he can to see that you don't arrive.
Declaration of Human Rights.
Yes.
And like those bills, I mean, I've read them and been through them, but I know some of us will lean towards looking at the UN to get validation.
You must look at the principle.
Power.
They're not invalidating
Right.
anything.
Right.
Even just like you look at, some people will look at Resolution 75, 1933. And you recognize when they did Resolution 75, which is also relative to this, and the General Assembly. Yes. You look at Resolution 75, some Moors will use Resolution 75 as a confirmation. It is not to be used as a confirmation, but an acknowledgement.